Anita Kumar is a White House correspondent for McClatchy, and she joins us now from Washington. So, Anita, reporters were initially told yesterday that the president would not be taking any questions after his prepared remarks on infrastructure. We understand from our own Major Garrett that the infrastructure discussion that the president was set to deliver was going to be substantial, and it was hoped that that would serve as a discussion point over the next couple of weeks as part of the president's agenda. So tell us why he decided to do what he did.
Well, the decision was his and his alone, as many things are with him. I mean, his aides had cautioned him to not take questions. We were told that he wouldn't be taking questions. But, you know, he was back at his home in Trump Tower in New York for the first time since he had become president. There was a lot of protesters outside. He was watching a lot of television and hearing what people had to say. And, you know, this president is someone who you can see when things sort of get on his nerves or get under his skin, he tends to tweet. He had some things he wanted to say, and so he decided to say them.
Several Republican lawmakers have come out and denounced the president, some using his name, but others not, like House Speaker Paul Ryan, who sort of chose to criticize white supremacy in general, but not admonish the president. Take us through the calculation there. Why do you suppose some lawmakers chose not to bring up the president's name?
Well, I mean, it's a tough thing to do, to call out the president of your own party. This is a guy that they have to work with to get anything done at all, and it's a very hard thing. Plus, as you can see, President Trump takes it out on people individually. You've seen him tweet and talk about people that he has disagreed with. But, you know, a lot of the people that you saw use his name come from swing districts. Barbara Comstock comes to mind. She's in a tight swing district in Virginia. She used his name. Some of those people, so they're from swing districts or swing states. Some of them are those that have been long critical of him, like John McCain has been critical of him for his entire, presidency so far.
Anita, I'm intrigued by, we were talking about, as Anne-Marie just said, lawmakers who have come out and denounced, in some cases generally, white supremacy, in other cases specifically calling out the president. But several military leaders have come out on Twitter, including the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Robert Neller, who tweeted, "No place for racial hatred or extremism in the United States Marine Corps. Our core values of honor, courage, and commitment frame the way Marines live and act." Then we saw recently, about 6 hours ago, General Mark Miley, who is the Army Chief of Staff. "The Army doesn't tolerate racism, extremism, or hatred in our ranks. It is against our values and everything we've stood for since 1775. And also the Chief of Naval Operations. I'm just curious if you're hearing anything specifically as to why the Chiefs of Staffs of the services would all of a sudden be coming out and tweeting. And of course, they most definitely cannot directly call out the President of the United States, who is their commander-in-chief, but they are making it clear that in our military, this is not accepted.
I know. I thought it was very interesting. You saw the same thing, though not quite as many, on, I guess, on Saturday, the first day that the president spoke about this, and people thought his answer was inadequate. I do think it's really interesting, and I do think it's sort of surprising. I mean, Donald Trump is their boss, right? He is the commander-in-chief. He is not going to like that. And so they are, while not saying his name, they are coming right up to the line. I'll be interested to see the reaction from him about that, because he clearly cannot be liking that.
We are learning that economic advisor Gary Cohn, who's Jewish, was reportedly disgusted by the president's remarks, though he has no plans to resign. That's what we've heard. I know a lot of people were watching General Kelly stand with his head looking down through the entire press conference. What are you hearing about the president's senior staff and how they're reacting to this?
Well, I mean, you mentioned, too, I mean, we hear that they're stunned. They did not want this to happen. The president often goes off script. He was off script yesterday, but yesterday was stunning. It was more off script than usual. He had that testy exchange over and over with reporters, which we're kind of used to. But the comments he made, I mean, this is 3 days, over a period of, 5 days where he went back and forth. It was clear that what he said Saturday was what he wanted to say. And I think the aides were just not prepared for that. They really thought that he would talk about infrastructure yesterday, that he would not take questions, and that he would kind of move on. And they know that they're in for the long haul now. I mean, General Kelly, his new chief of staff, has been in that job 2.5 weeks. It feels like a lot longer than that, but 2.5 weeks. Here was the man, retired general, who was going to come in and sort of take control. And he did take control of the White House. He has there's a sense of discipline there that there wasn't before. He's making sure that certain people don't get into the Oval Office, that people can't wander in. But the problem is he can't discipline the president. The president's going to do what he wants to do, and that is the problem that they all face every day, that he's unpredictable and they don't know what's going to come next.
And speaking of senior staff, the president spoke about his chief strategist, Steve Bannon, yesterday. I want to play that for our viewers, and then let's talk about it.
I like Mr. Bannon. He's a friend of mine. But Mr. Bannon came on very late. You know that. I went through 17 senators, governors, and I won all the primaries. Mr. Bannon came on very much later than that. And I like him. He's a good man. He is not a racist, I can tell you that. He's a good person. He actually gets a very unfair press in that regard. But we'll see what happens with Mr. Bannon. But he's a good person, and I think the press treats him, frankly, very unfairly.
All right, so the president never misses an opportunity to remind us that he won the election.
Right.
Everybody is aware that he is the president of the United States, but we always need a reminder. It's not exactly a full-throated endorsement. And to his point, Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway, these folks that sort of joined the campaign at a much later date, while it's true that they joined later on, many people point to the moment when those folks did join that we saw a more streamlined message from the then candidate that allowed him to win this election. What do you, is Steve Bannon, are you hearing that Steve Bannon?
Here's the thing, too. We're aware of the fact that Steve Bannon and Donald Trump have been friends for a long time before he decided to run. And, you know, depending on what reports you believe, Steve Bannon was instrumental in encouraging him to run. So this idea that, well, he was sort of late to the party is, I think, a little disingenuous.
It's a little disingenuous. And are you hearing, Anita, that he may be fired by week's end?
Well, we've been hearing the rumors for the last few weeks. I had one person who's quite close to the White House, Republican, tell me that he gives him 4 weeks. I mean, that's just a guess, a rumor. But you know that his words yesterday, President Trump's words yesterday, were very telling. If he had full confidence in Steve Bannon, he would sure tell us. If they had if the White House wanted to tell us that, they would. They'd send out a statement. Remember back a week or two ago that there was a lot of criticism of his national security advisor, H.R. McMaster. We, lo and behold, got an email from the White House telling us, or actually I guess it was from the president, saying how strongly he supported him. There was no doubt that nothing was happening with H.R. McMaster that day or anytime soon. So while that was somewhat of an endorsement, it wasn't strong enough. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, that he's leaving the door open for him to leave.
So before we let you go, we have to ask you about the announcement of an interim communications director. It's Hope Hicks. She's been around Donald Trump and his family for a while. What can you tell us about her and her influence?
Sure. I mean, it's not surprising. What we're hearing is that she's going to be the interim communications director, and it's not surprising for a couple reasons. One, Hope Hicks is very close to the Trump family. She worked for Donald Trump at his company, the Trump Organization. She's close to his daughter, Ivanka, and her husband, Jared Kushner, both of them in the White House right now. She's quite young. She's 28 years old. She has been the director of strategic communications, so she's been working on messaging, but we don't really see her. She's sort of behind the scenes. This will give her a little bit more of a higher profile, but she's always there. The president trusts her completely. She is one of his closest advisors, particularly on communications. So she's just sort of taking this on until they can find someone else. Now, the other reason it's not surprising is they can't find anyone else. They've talked to a lot of people about taking this job, and it's a tough one. I mean, just look at what happened over the last 5 days. It's going to be tough for them to find a permanent person.
Yeah, you know, I know her title is interim, but it almost seems like interim is in brackets for whoever takes the job full time. It's not going to be a long-term job, or it hasn't been anyways. Anita Kumar of McClatchy, thank you so much, Anita.
Sure, thank you.